Not just the student, we're going to do more. In fact, every day now we're approving visa revocations, and if that visa led to a green card, the green card process as well. And here's why. It's very simple. When you apply to enter the United States and you get a visa, you are a guest. And you're coming as a student, you're coming as a tourist, or what have you. And in it, you have to make certain assertions. And if you tell us when you apply for a visa, I'm coming to the U.S. to participate in pro-Hamas events, that runs counter to the foreign policy interest of the United States of America. It's that simple. So you lied. You came. If you had told us that you were going to do that, we never would have given you the visa. Now you're here. Now you do it. So you lied to us. You're out. He's going to leave, and so are others, and we're going to keep doing it.
There are so many things that become controversial that I don't understand why. I don't understand how any of this stuff is controversial. Maybe the great Bill Jacobson will explain it to me. Joining me now, founder of Legal Insurrection and professor at Cornell Law, Bill Jacobson. Okay, Professor, Mahmoud Khalil was a scumbag, came here as a guest, caused trouble, now he's gone. What's the controversy? What did I miss?
You didn't miss anything. What you're missing is that we have, an organizational structure in this country which is meant to protect people like him against the force of our laws. So, he came here, and seemingly from the moment he landed here a couple of years ago, he's been nothing but depriving Americans of their rights. Remember, this is a guy who led an organization at Columbia University, which took over buildings, trashed buildings, basically took janitors hostage. That's all over the New York Post yesterday, interfered with students' ability to go to class. So this is a guy who did not respect Americans' rights. And when he's called out on it and held to the terms of his visa and green card, which do not allow for this sort of conduct, he all of a sudden becomes a hero. So it's a fake outrage. It's the sort of outrage we've become used to, but we should not bow down to it.
I'm glad you brought up the point, because we might as well just wade into this ugly territory. The judges. Everyone's outraged right now. We wake up to a new outrage every day, myself included, where the Trump administration tries to implement really anything. Deport some Hamas guy, send a bunch of MS-13 guys to El Salvador. It really doesn't matter what he does. Some judge will step in and stop it, and people are pulling their hair out. Look at me, Bill. I had a full head of hair yesterday. Now look at me. People are angry about the whole thing. How do we stop this without tearing the country apart? Because either we have to ignore these people or something.
Well, the Supreme Court needs to do its job. Twice, the government has gone to the Supreme Court and said, put a halt to what these district court judges are doing. In one of the cases, a district court judge ordered that $2 billion be paid within 36 hours, and he didn't even know what the contracts were. The judge we're talking about in the news today ordered planes carrying the MS-13 and other terrorist groups out of the country to be turned around mid-flight. Judge couldn't have even known if the planes had enough fuel to do that, but ordered it. We've had 1 a.m. in the morning orders by judges. And what needs to happen is the Supreme Court needs to take control of the judiciary. And Justice Roberts is out there today complaining about all the criticism, but he needs to do his job.
Okay, I hate to play some childish game of what ifs, but I can't help but think about the future. What if they don't? Where do we go from that? Look, they just had a chance. I realized that was a temporary thing and they're going to have a chance to make a more permanent ruling. I get that, but what if they let us down? They have before. Are we stuck?
Well, the Democrats like to scream all the time about constitutional crisis. There really is no constitutional crisis other than the Democrats lost the election and they're utilizing and manipulating with some judges, connivance, the judiciary to try to take over the executive branch. Yeah, this is a problem. We have separation of powers for a reason. We have an appellate process for a reason, and the appellate process is not working. The district court judges, and this is why there's a lack of good faith, have been using a technique called temporary restraining orders. Temporary restraining orders, for the most part, are not appealable. And so what they've been doing, they've been creating these 2 to 4 week windows where you can't even go to an appellate judge. And the government tried to go to the DC Circuit, and the DC Circuit said, well, you can't appeal this TRO. And the Supreme Court basically did the same thing. So yeah, we're approaching a crisis level. We don't want to talk about it, and we're not going to suggest it, but we don't want to talk about what if the Trump administration just says, I'm not following your order. We want to avoid getting there. And Chief Justice Roberts, rather than lecturing people who are talking about impeaching judges, needs to lecture the district court judges to not go out of their lane. I mean, we have had some crazy, crazy rulings, which were then, insulated by calling them TROs, temporary restraining orders. So yeah, we don't like to talk about it, but let's hope we don't get there, because then you really do have a crisis.
Yeah. It seems like it's all bad decisions to choose from. All right, let's move on and talk about some other things, mainly things to do with the court, like birthright citizenship. Obviously, it's just beyond absurd that we live in a country where you can step across the border and have a baby and it's an American citizen. That's just such a blatant violation of the law. But what are we expecting the Supreme Court to do about this?
Well, if I had to wager, and I'm not a betting person because I always lose, I would wager that the Supreme Court is not going to touch it, that they will simply say that this is the way it's been for 100 years, and we're not going to change the current practice. They would be wrong. They would be wrong to do that. And I don't know if they will have the, fortitude to stand up to the public pressure. But there are very good arguments that historically the provisions in the 14th Amendment granting citizenship, which were meant to apply to newly freed slaves, were never intended to apply to people who are here illegally. And that's the key thing. There have been a couple of Supreme Court rulings, but always as to people who were here legally, permanent resident aliens here. It has never been a situation where you can fly here on, a birthright tourism where you fly in from Asia or wherever you're flying in from. They put you up in a hotel in Los Angeles. You have your baby. You fly back to China or wherever, and your kid's now an American citizen. It's completely absurd. It's not what was intended. And there's very good historical arguments that that is beyond what was meant by the 14th Amendment. I just don't know if this court, having come under the pressure over abortion and reversing Roe v. Wade, is willing to go there. I mean, let's not forget, the Democrats whipped people into such a frenzy that some lunatic with a gun showed up on the doorstep of Justice Kavanaugh over the abortion decision. So I don't know if they will have the strength to do it, but I believe it would be the right decision.
All right, finally. The pardon pen. Obviously, Trump made a bunch of waves yesterday, put out a social media post that the Joe Biden pardons are null and void because he was a cadaver and it was all auto pen. And I had to play Daddy Jesse on the air and let everybody know that's not how it works. As much as I want those pardons to go away, they're not going to go away. It doesn't really matter what we want. That's reality. But Bill, feel free to slap me around with your version of it.
Well, this is a thing which, in the popular conception, I think makes perfect sense. That if he didn't actually sign it, how is it a real pardon? The Constitution doesn't require that a pardon even be signed. You can read the provision in the Constitution on pardons, grants the president the power of, I think it's called reprieve and pardon. Does not say you've got to sign it, doesn't say you have to sign it yourself, doesn't say you have to use a ballpoint pen, which of course didn't exist at that time, doesn't say any of that. But I think there is a very serious issue, which is going to have to be brought forward in the right way, which is, if Joe Biden did not sign it, did he specifically authorize the auto pen to be used if the auto pen was used? Did he even know about the pardons or the clemencies? And if he did not know about it, and if he did not direct the auto pen to be used, I think you've got a real issue there. The only way it comes up is if the Trump administration, federal prosecutors, move to prosecute somebody who got a pardon, and they would then say, hey, you can't do that. Here's the pardon, here's the piece of paper. The government would have to then come in with proof that it was not validly issued. Just like any other document, if somebody signs your name to something and you didn't authorize them to do that, you're not bound by it. I don't know if the government has that proof, but if the only thing they've got is that the auto pen was used, and if Joe Biden authorized it, there's probably nothing there.
And obviously, you're the legal expert. I'm the furthest thing from it. How do we prove that he didn't authorize it? Because it would seem to me the key witness in this whole case is somebody that has already been decided is not even mentally fit to stand trial, and that was a year ago. What, are we going to go ask Joe Biden if he remembers? He doesn't remember what he had for breakfast.
Well, that's true. So he can't be a witness as to his remembering, but there were people around him. What time of day was it used? Who was there when it was used? What were the communications? Where are the emails? Where are the text messages? Did he have communications when he was on the beach, wherever he was, or on some island, wherever he was? Was he communicating with the office on the day in which it was used? So you can build a circumstantial case, but you're right. Joe Biden can't be effectively a witness for himself. Federal prosecutors already have ruled, not quite that he's not mentally capable to stand trial, but that he was so damaged that no jury would ever, convict him of anything. So I think that it's a problem. And if the Trump administration is going to go that route, they really better do their research before they go that route. But if they've got the goods, then these could be invalid pardons.
My fingers are crossed. I have more hope than I did yesterday. Professor, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.